Executive Editor Palki Sharma Upadhyay also tells us more on this news story as she puts things into perspective. Listen in.
India has strongly refused to take this matter to the United Nations. A lot of countries, a lot of leaders, a lot of institutions have offered to mediate. But the government of India, no matter who is in power, no matter which party is in power, has not budged on this one point that Kashmir remains a bilateral issue. And in the past, American presidents and leaders have also offered what Trump has offered. But what is different this time, and I repeat, at the risk of sounding repetitive, I have to say that Donald Trump is claiming that it was the Indian Prime Minister who sought help. Maybe there was miscommunication, maybe he did not hear it clearly, we do not know what transpired, and we were not privy to conversations between two top leaders. But for Donald Trump to say this is putting everyone in a spot, including his own government, which will also have to do some explaining. The US government is going to be asked subsequently on when and where this offer was made, and why is it that Donald Trump chose to speak about it now in his meeting with the Pakistani Prime Minister. So this meeting was supposed to be about what Imran Khan wants from the Americans. It was supposed to be about Afghanistan, about action on terrorism, about the financial doldrums that Pakistan is in. But Donald Trump, with that one single statement, has turned it on its head, offering to mediate on the Kashmir issue.
So our Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik is also bringing us more as he tracks the Pakistan Prime Minister's visit to Washington. Listen in.
The White House statement, it clearly goes in both sides. Its interpretation can be on both sides. The Pakistani side seeing it as a win on their part, that they have been seemingly able to convince the United States that they have done some action against terror, as the press release reads from White House. However, there is more needs to be done, and Pakistani side, when I spoke to some officials, they said that this is in line with what the National Action Plan has been, that Pakistan is trying to root out extremism and terror sanctuaries. So Pakistani side sees this statement that in a way acknowledges that Pakistan has done some part on its part to root out extremism or terrorism, and that it needs to shut down terror sanctuaries. The Pakistani side is seeing that as an acknowledgement by and large. But all in all, we all know that Pakistan needs to do more when it, with regards to its crackdown against terror elements, be that be the likes of Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, or Zakir Rahman Naqvi.
Our next report takes a look at the history of US-Pakistan relationship. It explains why and how both the United States and Pakistan need each other. Have a look.
Pakistan's relationship with the United States was forged by the Cold War. Pakistan was ruled for a large part of its independent existence by the military. American generals and their military-industrial complex found it easier to deal with the Pakistani military rulers. In contrast, India pursued a different trajectory. After the end of the British colonial rule, India founded the non-aligned movement. It did not become a camp follower of either bloc. But Pakistan became deeply entrenched in US policies in the region and beyond. It became a member of two military alliances led by the US and its allies, the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization and the Central Treaty Organization. (1971) was a watershed moment for multiple reasons. The crisis in what was then known as East Pakistan was exploding. The US used Pakistan in its bid to open a channel of communication with China. India and the Soviet Union signed a treaty of peace and friendship. And towards the end of the year, India intervened in East Pakistan and liberated Bangladesh. The US indulged in gunboat diplomacy by sending the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Enterprise into the Bay of Bengal. According to a former US National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger, Pakistan helped the US to reach out to China. In an interview to The Atlantic magazine, Kissinger says that by the time the Bangladeshi crisis began in March 1971, the US had conducted a number of highly secret exchanges with China and were on the verge of a breakthrough. These exchanges were conducted through Pakistan, which emerged as the interlocutor most acceptable to Beijing and Washington. The Bangladesh crisis, in its essence, was an attempt of the Bengali part of Pakistan to achieve independence. Pakistan resisted with extreme violence and gross human rights violations. To condemn these violations publicly would have destroyed the Pakistani channel, which would be needed for months to complete the opening to China, which indeed was launched from Pakistan. Kissinger, who was US President Richard Nixon's national security advisor at the time, made a secret trip to Beijing in July 1971. He flew to Beijing from Pakistan. His meetings in Beijing paved the way for Nixon's historic visit to China in February 1972.
An invitation to President Nixon to visit China.
Pakistan would prove useful for the US a second time in Washington's attempts to oust the Soviets from Afghanistan. Pakistan was the launch pad for hundreds of mujahideen who fought against the Soviet forces in Afghanistan. The US made Pakistan a major non-NATO ally in 2002. It allowed Washington to pump more financial aid to Islamabad, some of which was used by Pakistan to carry out terror attacks in India. Islamabad's double-speak on terror continued as it engaged the Taliban and other terror groups as an instrument of state policy, targeting India and Afghanistan alike. The global terrorist Hafiz Saeed was the mastermind of the 2008 terror attacks in Mumbai. In fact, the Quetta Shura operated out of Pakistan. Pakistan harbored Osama bin Laden too. He was traced to the garrison town of Abbottabad near Islamabad and eventually killed by the US in 2011. In the last few years, Pakistan has again emerged as an interlocutor in US Special Envoy Zalmay Khalilzad's talks with the Taliban in Qatar. 7 rounds of talks have concluded so far. The US and some of its European allies say that it was a necessity to involve Pakistan in bringing the Taliban to the negotiating table. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.